So officially, good afternoon everyone. My name is Bill Murch. I'm one of the application engineers at Intercad and I'm based in the Sydney office. This webinar will introduce you to advanced design automation using DriveWorks Solo and DriveWorks Pro. As ever in these webinars, we have a lot to cover in a short time, so if you can keep any questions you have until the end, then I'll try and answer them then. If for some reason I can't, all the questions will be collated and sent to me, and I'll respond afterwards in an email. So I think you can see my screen properly now. I'm seeing the audience view. That looks okay. All right. So these are the topics we'll be covering today. We'll have a quick overview of the DriveWorks product range, just to put everything into context for you. I'll compare and contrast DriveWorks Solo and DriveWorks Pro, so you can see the similarities and differences. I'll run a couple of pre-prepared projects in DriveWorks Solo to show you how it works, and then I'll show you DriveWorks Pro from scratch. DriveWorks Solo from scratch, so you can see the steps involved in getting a little project running from absolutely nothing. Then I'll show you DriveWorks Pro, so you can compare it to what you've just seen in Solo. Now I'm using Solo for all the live demos because a lot of Pro's power is really behind the scenes, and it's a bit hard to show in a short presentation like this. And I'll show you how you can have a go using DriveWorks Live on the web. This allows you to actually use DriveWorks Pro, but it's a live example, a live demo sort of thing on the web. We'll have a bit of a review at the end, just to recap what we've covered, and we'll leave a bit of time for questions and answers at the end. Okay, so the DriveWorks product range comprises 3 design automation products. There's DriveWorks Express, DriveWorks Solo, and DriveWorks Pro. They're all based on the same technology, so you can easily upgrade from one to another as your requirements grow. So we'll have a look at each one of them briefly now. So DriveWorks Express is the entry-level design automation program. It ran in its own window in SOLIDWORKS 2010, but it's now based within the task pane in SOLIDWORKS 2011. It's been freely available in every seat of SOLIDWORKS since SOLIDWORKS 2008. So if you didn't know, you actually have DriveWorks Express on your system right now. Once you've set it up, you simply fill in the form, and you can then generate variations of your design. If you want more information on DriveWorks Express, you can go to the website shown there, driveworksexpress.com, and you can learn more about it and also download sample products to run within SOLIDWORKS to see the sort of stuff that you can do with that version of DriveWorks. DriveWorks Solo is a SOLIDWORKS add-in. It expands on DriveWorks Express. It's easier to use with a far more friendly environment than DriveWorks Express. In addition to what DriveWorks Express can do, you can also create additional documentation such as sales quotes and covering letters and other documentation like that. It's got more control and power in that you have greater control of your SOLIDWORKS drawings, your views, your scales, positions of views, etc. The forms are customizable. You can have multiple forms. You can control the order of the forms, and you can customize them to suit yourself. and it has more powerful rules and a full rule builder. It's a SOLIDWORKS certified gold product, and if you want to have a look at it, you can download a free 30-day trial. You can get that and more information from the DriveWorks Solo website. I'll just leave that there in case you want to jot that down. Give me a few seconds. Remembering that this whole webinar is being recorded, so you can get a copy later on. Okay, DriveWorks Pro is also a SOLIDWORKS add-in. Now, DriveWorks Solo can automate SOLIDWORKS to the same level as DriveWorks Pro, but Pro goes above and beyond what Solo can do. For a start, Pro can integrate with your other company systems, such as ERP systems. It works with SOLIDWORKS EPDM. You can check your models into EPDM. It has a range of security settings. You can define users, teams, levels, so therefore you can define who can see which projects and who can't and when they can see them, etc. Of course, you have a workflow system, so you can have states like your project is in design, it's pending approval, it's been approved, it's released, engineering change note, etc. So your users can be controlled as to who can do what within the system. And there's also an online version of DriveWorks Pro that I mentioned before, DriveWorks Live. You can go to the DriveWorks Live website, and I'll show you that later on. And you can actually have a go at creating a variation of the designs that have been uploaded there. It's also a DriveWorks Gold certified product, and you can get more information from the DriveWorks Pro website that's shown there now. A DriveWorks Pro comes in 5 different modules, so you can build and expand your automation system as you need it. We'll look at these now. The first one is DriveWorks Administrator. An administrator can create, edit, and run the projects in your system. The DriveWorks Solo is like a version of DriveWorks Administrator for a single user. You also have DriveWorks User. Now, a user can only run the projects that the administrator has set up. They can't create new projects, they can't edit them, they can just run them. DriveWorks Autopilot is software that can generate the models and documents for your project independently of the users. It can be set up to run on a central machine or almost overnight or at predetermined times. So it takes the load off the users. They can fill in the forms to generate the details they want and then send it off to DriveWorks Autopilot, which can then run by itself. I mentioned DriveWorks Live. It's a web interface to your DriveWorks projects, perfect for the sales force. They can run through a project with a customer who doesn't have SOLIDWORKS or DriveWorks. It works on any web browser anywhere in the world, so your sales force can just go and visit their clients. And the results of what they do on DriveWorks Live could be sent back to DriveWorks Autopilot for processing. Within DriveWorks Live, there's a function called 3D Preview that allows exactly that, a 3D preview of the model you're generating to be seen live on the web as the data is entered into the form. That's pretty powerful stuff. Okay, let's look at the actual products now. I'll switch over to SOLIDWORKS and take you through a couple of existing DriveWorks Solo projects so you can see some of the advanced features that are available. Then I'll create a simple DriveWorks Solo project from scratch. So there's my SOLIDWORKS screen. So what you see in front of you is what's called the master model. So that was a hydraulic cylinder that was created in SOLIDWORKS, and then it was captured in DriveWorks, so it can be driven in DriveWorks, hence the name DriveWorks, of course. So what I can do, it shows over here on the right-hand side, DriveWorks Solo. And you can see here it lists the captured model. So all these components of the hydraulic cylinder have been captured. I can look at dimensions and features that have been captured. For example, the stroke's been captured, the bolt pattern, custom properties can be captured. I can capture drawings, etc., instances of patterns on the bottom here. And I can even define replacement models under some circumstances. So what we'll do is we'll run through that now and show you the end result of setting up a project. You can see it's all happening on the right-hand side, embedded in SolidWorks in the task pane. Up the top here, I can run the project. And that brings up a form for us to input the data to create a variation of that cylinder that you see. Now, a few things just to show you initially. You can just put in descriptive text, as you can see at the top here. This section deals with, etc. You put in prompts. There are different field types, such as a drop-down list here. And down the bottom of the screen, before I pick that, you can see down here a couple of tasks that need to be filled in. So before we click on the next button, if you look at the next button, it's actually grayed out. We have to enter the rod diameter and the bore value. So we can immediately start to reduce the errors by missing out data or not filling in the information that we need. So if I go back up here to the bore, I can choose from a list, and again I'm reducing the possibility of errors because I've defined the possible bores that I can select. So there's no room for typos in here, so I'll make it 3 inches long. Another way of doing it, the stroke is in inches, it's got 8 here, but in the red text below that, it shows me the stroke value has to be between 8 and 22. So if I type in a number between those two, that's fine, it accepts that. But if I was to type in a value that was outside that range, such as 6, as soon as I press Tab or Enter, it just reverts to the minimum value. So I can't get a stroke that's not within the range allowed. I can choose the rod diameter, that's still required. And you can see down the bottom, the tasks have been completed, therefore the next button has been activated. So I could immediately progress if the rest of the form is correct, but I'll just scroll down and show you what's in there as well. So there's an image here for a start, which is brilliant because that way you can see what you're going to get. Pressure range, if I change that, again, predefined range of ranges in this case. If I go above a certain range, the image actually changes, and it says here, it tells you why. So these are the sort of things you can do. You can make images update based on your data input. You can put justifications in there or whatever you need. So again, you're controlling information that goes into your design. Likewise down here, if we're ordering 10, we get a discount of 10%. So it's just here. If I were to go less than 10, say to 9, then it automatically updates the little message there saying discount of 5% is applied. Again, these are the rules you can set up. And the last thing on this form here is a question, do you need, sorry, second last, do you need a clevis? If I untick that, the image updates to show me that I'm creating a hydraulic cylinder without a clevis on the end. I'll just say yes for that at this stage and leave it on there. And I can choose the port size again from a list. Once I've entered all the information I need, I choose next. Takes it to another page. I ask for clevis, so I get the choice. And again, the image updates, as well as, in this case, a small drawing showing the sizes. So we'll go with the little simple one. Now, just to show you a little thing here, actually I'll just go next first. And here it gives me an information screen where I fill in the information for the customer. And I have the ability to choose the customer from a list of customer names. Or if it's a new customer, I can click on New Company here, and the fields are left empty for me to fill in the blanks. All very powerful, all happens within DriveWorks. You don't have to go out and update a database somewhere else. It can be done within here. I'll leave it with an existing customer. And just to show you something here, I've gone through from the initial details form to the Clevis form, to the information form here. If I go back a couple of steps just to show you something, if I elected to have no Clevis, then although everything else looks the same on the screen, when I click the next button, I'll automatically skip the Clevis form. I said I don't want one, so why go to the form? So you have the intelligence behind those buttons too. You have what's called a specification flow. It's a form flow. So you can define sort of yes/no questions and decide which forms are shown when. It's all very powerful, very neat. On this form here, as I fill in the company name, then it controls the name of the quotation number down here. It starts with SOM because it's Somerville Giants. If I was to do something else like the Wheelers, then the quotation number becomes WHE. So you have the ability to extract information or part information from different fields, different controls, different data within your system. If I go next here, it gives me a summary form. And again, every one of these forms is completely controllable by you. You can elect how many forms you want and what's shown on each of the forms. So here it summarizes things, the customer details, in American dollars, specified details, pricing, etc., etc. Now, if I click Finish, which I won't in this case because of time, it could go off and create drawings and models, etc. I will do that in a minute, but just not for this one because this particular example takes a fair while to generate in terms of, I'm saying a couple of minutes really, but in terms of a short presentation like this, it's a fairly long part of our time. Okay, so I hope that gives you an initial idea of some of the things that you can do with the forms and how powerful it is and how much you can control the data input to your system. I'll just close that down for now. I'll cancel out of that there, and I'll close down that particular model. And up here, I can go and open up another project. So I'll open up an existing project. Just browse up to that so you can store them wherever you want to. I've got mine stored up here. I won't worry too much about the screen updating because I'm just browsing to another folder to open up the required file. And I end up with a project like this. Now I'll just open up the assembly to show you what we're working on. So we're going to model a little cupboard. So that what you see on the screen there is the master cupboard, the one that was initially built. And we can now take that and create variations of that based on our form. And you can see on the dimensions and features section on the right-hand side there that quite a few dimensions have been captured. If the dimensions have been captured, that means we can control them, and that means we can control the size of the cupboard. So what we'll do is we'll run this project as well. You'll see what happens. So here's our custom cupboard company. And down the bottom again, you can see it's looking for a number of tasks to be completed. Unique quote number, company name, contact, etc. So we'll put a quote number up in here. And contact name. As I put these in, if you look down the bottom, you'll see those tasks reduced. So I've already entered the quote number, so that task has been taken off the warning list. Apologies to all the John Smiths of the world, but so now we have one task list, the salesperson, and this could be. So there's the basic information, and there's the cupboard, sort of basic shape we're looking at, and what currency are we using. Well, we'll go with Euro for now, that'll do. And the next button is available, so we can proceed to the next stage. It then asks us, okay, what size do we want? Okay, well, let's make it a bit higher than that. And we'll make it a bit wider. Just filling in information here, a bit deeper, 300. And again, you can set up the forms to have these images update. So it's currently a flat door style. but I can go in here and make it a shaker style, slightly recessed doors, or I can even make them glass. So the previews in the form can give you an idea of what you're generating before you even do it. So I go next. Okay, what sort of material do we want? And again, images can update. So we might go, let's make sure we change colour to oak. And what sort of handles do we want? There's little round oak handles you see there, or there's a D style. That looks nice, we'll go with that one. Now, it also gives us a running tally of the price here. Now, one of the strengths of Solo, if you want to have a look at it before you commit to anything, you can come back up to the top of the screen here, top of the task pane, and do a preview. What it will do is it will take the data we put in there and will generate a variation of our cupboard, but only with temporary files. It won't commit anything, it won't physically create models that you have to then delete afterwards. They're just temporary files. So if I run a preview now, you'll see a few windows flash up. I'm not sure you'll see everything because of the internet delay, but it's actually replacing components and it's driving custom properties, it's driving dimensions. So the handles have been replaced, the doors have been changed, even the pitch of the nails has been adjusted for nailing on the back panel. And then it shows us what we'd be getting if we decide to proceed. So you don't have to finalise your project, you can just run a preview whenever you want to. If you've entered a bit of data and you're not quite sure how it looks, you want to double check it, run a preview and have a look at it without any commitment. It's a lot faster overall, you don't have to commit and delete files, you just preview it. And obviously it saves space because you're not committing files, making them and having to delete them, or remember to delete them in case you forget. And it just keeps overwriting these temporary files all the time. So if we think that's okay, we can go next. We have a summary screen here. Summarises it's an oak cupboard, dimensions, price, glass doors, etc. And now I will finish this one. When I finish, I'll have the option of generating documents, models, etc. You see this? Finish that one. So I can save the models with the final file names. Up the top of the SOLIDWORKS screen, you can see it currently says cupboard assembly underscore RTA, etc. That's the temporary file name. What you'll see in a minute is the file name will be generated based on some rules. I can generate drawings. You'll see the drawings be created, and the views all adjust size and scale to fit. Generate some documents. We'll have a covering letter and a quote. I'll show you them. So I'll run finish. This will take just a few moments. So you just need to watch the window in the bottom right-hand corner. Will tell you what it's doing. Finalising the model now. In a few moments you'll see some individual components appear in the screen because it's actually creating every individual component of this cupboard. Based on the sizes we input. Drawings being created. The views will resize and reposition to fit into the paper. Hopefully you'll see that at your end. In this case, it's also been set up to create PDF files of them. So you can automatically generate files of other formats as well. So broken views are all handled, scales are adjusted. So you really can drive your entire design using DriveWorks Solo and Pro. That's the whole idea of it. Okay, now it just popped up a window at the end there, which just flashed away for some reason, so I'll just bring it up again. So here's the results. It generates a report file, so if something does go wrong, this report file will tell you what worked and what didn't work. There's a folder for all the models that were created, such as all the individual components, left door assemblies, etc. Different components that make up the actual design. We have the drawings folder. Now, this particular project is broken up this way. You can control where all your files go and what files are created. So there's your drawings and your PDF files. And in fact, you also have extra documents as well. For example, a covering letter. So this is actually a browser document, an HTML file. I'll just pop it up and show you. So it hasn't filled everything in. As you can see, top left-hand corner has the DriveWorks information. That would be your company information. Then ABC, Proprietary Limited, D. John Smith, etc. So you do effectively does a mail merge for you of all your information with the signature at the end. So that's what you can do. And there's also, I won't go into it, but there's also a quote document as well that can be generated. Okay, I'll get rid of some of these PDF files that are left open. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a bit more idea of what DriveWorks Solo can do. You generate the new design, you generate all the models that you need, generate the drawings you need, additional documents such as PDF files, quotes, covering letters, etc. And so just once it's set up, you just rerun it and run it and run it and create different variation every time. Just a question that's come through from Mahesh about design library parts. Yes, Mahesh, you can decide to drive design library parts or not drive them. So it's your choice as to what you drive and what you don't. If those design library parts are in the model, then they will be included in the final variation that you create. You can elect to drive them if you want to, or you just leave them in there and they're just part of the assembly anyway. I hope that makes sense. We can always talk about some of it later on if we need to. So what I'm going to do is just close all this down and start a whole new model, a whole new project I should say, go from scratch and show you what's involved. Now, close that down. Okay, so we're going to go in and make a brand new project. Create a new project here. So you can see I can create an empty project. I can import from DriveWorks Express. So if you do start with DriveWorks Express, it's easy to upgrade that into DriveWorks Solo. And there are a number of templates available as well. So for example, the hydraulic cylinder and cover I showed you before are based on some templates that the DriveWorks have provided. I need to browse off to where I'm going to put this. So I'll go into my system here. And it automatically, by default, assigns the same name to your DriveWorks project as the name of the folder it's in. You can, of course, override that if you want to. I'll do that. So it starts a whole new project, but if you can see at the top of the DriveWorks pane, it actually says open a model to capture it. So it's giving you some prompts as to what it wants to do. We have to have an existing model, what we refer to as the master model, to then drive that and to get our variations. So I can simply click on that. I can browse off to find the model that want to work on. So in my case, it's up here under electrical enclosure. There's the assembly file. So we're going to create variations of this little electrical enclosure. It's a small assembly. It's got a top, a door, and a basic case. And we're going to work with that. Having opened the model, the prompt now tells me to click here to capture the active model. So you can do it manually, but why not follow the prompts? They're there for you. If I click on that, so it automatically captures the assembly, but we also need to drive the individual components. So I'll simply tick them capture them as well. The idea is we capture models, we capture some information about them in a minute, and when we start our forms, we can drive to that information. So we've captured them down the bottom here in our task pane. It shows us we can capture dimensions and features. We can capture custom properties, drawings, instances of patterns, and we can also have what's called replacement models. So if I want to replace the particular door we see there with another door with a glass panel, I wouldn't have to have that glass panel door loaded in here. I could simply swap it in later as and when I need to. So what we need to do first of all is go into dimensions and features and start to capture a few things here. So in fact, that's the whole assembly. We need to first of all go into individual components. If I want to open up the case body here, so there's the case body itself. I need to capture dimensions to control its size. So for example, edge flange 1 over here. If I double click on that, it gives me some dimensions, and there's, for example, a dimension here to define the depth of the case body. And now over here on the right hand side, it shows you the SolidWorks name, which is D7 at edge flange 1. But I can also put in a more user-friendly DriveWorks name. So I'll just call this the depth. I can add that. That's now a captured dimension, which means I'll be able to drive it. The way this model is created, it's used some planes here to define heights and widths. So the left plane here, for example, has a width dimension. So I click on that. Over here on their task pane, the SolidWorks name is width at left, but it's because it's been renamed width already, DriveWorks assumes you want to use that name, so it just puts the word width in as the name. So we can accept that. So we've now grabbed the depth and width of this case. And last of all, there's the bottom plane over here. Double click on that. Gives me a height dimension, which I can click on. It gives me the name height over here. So I can add height. So I'm capturing the dimensions that I want to control later on. I might also want to capture a custom property, so I can control the color of the item. I'll simply tick that, and that's a captured custom property. Now we do the same sort of process. I'll just close that one down, and we'll go back to our captured models and open up the case door. So we're going to work on the case door itself. There's the door. The same way as before, we capture the information of it. So for example, there's a left plane here. And there's a dimension going across, which is our width. So that's the width of our door. So I can add that one. Likewise, I go to the bottom plane, activate that, or double click on that. See the dimension, choose that dimension, and I can add that one. And we'll also capture the custom property for that one to drive its color. Okay, so they're captured. And the last one we'll do now is the top of the case. Open up that. There's the left plane again to define the width of the top part. I'll add that. There's the front plane. To define the depth. And we'll also drive its color as a custom property. Okay. Now back at the assembly level, we'd also like to capture the drawing of it. So down here in the task pane, we can click on the Drawings tab. And we can browse off for the drawing we want to capture. So electrical enclosure assembly drawing is just there. That drawing is now captured, which means that we can drive it. So that's the first stage of the process. We have to capture what we want to drive. The next stage is to go into the solo design area and start to define on our forms and our rules, etc. It's up the top of the screen up here, top of the task pane, Project Designer. So this is just another window that's popped up. I can resize that and show you how it's floating in front of SolidWorks. I'll just maximize it again for ease of viewing. See on the left-hand side there's the Task Explorer, where you have the ability to define your forms, and there's variables, tables, and the output rules. So, for example, form navigation, I can create multiple forms. In this simple example, we're only working with one. It's pretty easy. It's the details form, but I can have multiple forms with a form flow or form navigation, and I can have decisions, yes, no, to decide which form I go to and when. If I go to a simple form design, here's a form laid out here. At the top of the screen, I have a number of little controls that I can put onto the form, so I can lay out the way I want to put the data in. So, for example, we might want to start with a simple label as a heading. So we'll call it electrical enclosure. Then you have the ability, once you put a control in, on the right-hand side over here, you have all the properties of that particular control. So, for example, text color, text font, I can go in here, I could change this to make it bold and somewhat bigger, change the font, etc. if I wanted to. So you can make it look nice, choose your company colors, for example, and adjust the size of and position of the form, of the control, I mean. It all fits in. We could put a numeric text box in up here. And of course, enclosure height. Drops in place for me. Another numeric text box for the width. So this is enclosure width. And at this stage also we'll have one for the enclosure depth, but we'll do it slightly differently. We'll have a combo box, which gives us a drop down to choose from. Enclosure depth. Now, each of these controls, we have properties on the right-hand side. So I can select both of them, for example, the height and width. Because it's a numeric text box, I can come over here, I can set maximum and minimum values. The maximum might be 2,000 millimeters, 2 meters, and the minimum 100. Okay. Now for the enclosure depth, however, we want to have a little drop down here with a list of items. So we have an items property over here on the right-hand side. And when I click in this little box over here, then I can go in there and activate what's called the rules builder. It's a very, very powerful part of DriveWorks. And I can put in a simple list here, separated by the pipe symbol. And if you notice the red background, that currently tells me that the rule is not valid. I'll just use the list of numbers we want. But as soon as I get the formatting right, for example, one more character, I get a green background, which now tells me that the rule is valid. It comes up with a valid result. So if I choose OK on that one, and that rule builder is really the heart and soul of DriveWorks. So we've got some basic information in here. Now we can test this then just to make sure it's working. So there's a test button at the top of the screen here. So as you're developing your forms, you can test them before you actually put them into play. So it looks the same, but it's in test mode. So for example, I can look at my drop down, and there's the numbers that I typed in. I can choose a value there. I can try typing numbers up here that are outside the range. It was 2,000 maximum. If I type in 4,000, it defaults to the maximum value. So already we're putting some levels of control into our forms. And whatever values you leave here in test mode become default values when you go in to actually run the form. Go to test mode. What we'd also like to do is to be able to control the colors. So to do that, we're going to create a new table. So I have a brand new table. We'll call it, call it colors. That creates a new table for us. What I can do is I can copy and paste from Excel. So I've got Excel running here in the background. Use Excel with some columns of color names and RGB values. So I simply select all the data I want. And just do a copy and paste. That puts all the data into my DriveWorks table. Now we can work with that data. So if we go back to our form, and we'll put a list box on here, so different sort of control, called color. And I can choose, I can make this area here a bit wider to allow for the names of the colors. Might go a little bit here actually. Okay. And I build a rule for my items to go in that list. In the rules builder, there's an item called a list all, so I can list everything from a table. And it's the table, down here it's the table's color, and we'll list the column color. So that gives us the format of the command. If you know the format, you can always type them in, of course, but the rules builder has little wizards to help you. Okay. Now just adjust the size of this, and you can see what's happening. We're getting a list of names coming in there. I'll be able to scroll through and select them. What I would also like to do is actually add a picture showing me the actual color, so I know what it's like. I don't know what Alice Blue looks like, for example. So I can add a picture box to my form. We'll call it color swatch. We can resize that over here. So everything's resizable and adjustable. And what we'll do is we'll build a rule for that, going off to a series of image files that we have. So we're looking for a file name, for example, in the colors, and this is the way it's been done. So there's Alice Blue. Now, of course, that would always use the Alice blue color. So what we need to do is tell the system to find out what color we chose. So we can do that like this. So we go to the colors folder, and then we add information that's not specific to a name. We actually look at the color option over here in our form. If I double click on that, I get what's called a color return, which is basically means the color that's returned from that form on the control. So that format up there looks a bit strange perhaps, but it resolves to a proper name. If you look down the bottom here, it actually shows you it's working out Alice Blue at this stage. If I choose OK on that, and we can just adjust that so the color fits in nicely. If I go and test that to show how it works, that's Alice Blue. If I go to Aquamarine, the color updates. Scroll down a bit, something else, there's black. So I immediately have some feedback. When I pick the name, I see the swatch of the color as well. Okay, that's pretty good. That was a simple color swatch, but if you remember in the examples before, the images of the hydraulic cylinder updated, the images of the cupboard updated, so you have that sort of control. Okay, we need to put some more information in here. There's some variables we can define. These are really handy for reusing data over and over again instead of having to remember a particular number. I'm going to add 4 different variables here. The door thickness. I'm just adding them for now. I'll add values in a moment. There's the door gap. I'm just adding new variables. Top thickness. The top overhang. So these are values we want to use over and over again. Rather than remembering the actual numbers, we just create a variable and we access the variable whenever we need to. So for example, the door thickness over here, if I click on that, I'm going to click on build up here. I can build a rule for it. In this case, it's pretty simple. It's just a value, which is 12.4, which is okay. I can do the same for the others. So the door gap, for example, 1.2. I can also just click over here in the rule on the right-hand side here. Double click in here and make the top overhang 4 and the top thickness 15. So they're variables to set. So what we've done so far is captured the dimensions in features in SolidWorks, and we've created the form with some variables so far at this point. Now we need to link all them together with our rules down here in the model rules. When we go to the model rules for the first time, it doesn't know what models we want to work with, so we have to just add them in. So we choose our electrical enclosure. I don't need to choose the children at this point because they'll come in with the assembly anyway. And if I look at the case body, for example, that's all information. There's the dimensions that we captured and the color, and DriveWorks automatically looks at the configurations, the file name, so we can control the file name, and the relative path or where it gets stored. You have full control over all those. So I'm going to work on these dimensions quickly. I can note the time running away from us a little bit. The depth, if we build a rule to control the depth of the case body. So what that will be the enclosure depth that we entered into our form. So over here we have our forms shown. And here's our enclosure depth. So we want to take that depth from the form. So we double click on that. That returns it from the form into DriveWorks. And we subtract from that the door thickness, which is a variable. And we subtract from that the door gap. So you build up rules based on how your model has been structured. So I'll do that to the height and width as well. So the height, I build a rule for that. And that will be the height we entered, the enclosure height we entered in the form, less the top thickness from the variables. So you can see how we can reuse the variable over and over without having to remember the actual number. If we do want to change to 12.4, we change it once and it updates everywhere. And the width, we build that one, and that just is the same as the width that we entered, enclosure width. So in doing that, we now have those dimensions of the model that we captured controlled by the data we put into the forms. Here are the rules over here on the right-hand side. And there's a column showing the resultant values based on the defaults we have at the moment. Okay, now I'll just pop through and do some more in the other areas without explaining too much because it's the same sort of process. The height for the case door. Enclosure height. That's the top thickness. The width. The enclosure width we typed in. So that controls them. And we also do the same for the top. So the width of the top part is the width we entered in the form plus the top overhang. Then we have depth, which is the depth we entered in the form. So now we have those rules set up. We also want to actually control the color. So if I put all of these on, I find the color for each of those components. I'm going to drive the color, the custom property of the color of the item for each of those components. Build a rule so we can do 3 rules at once in effect. We're going to do what's called a VLOOKUP. We're going to look up the color we selected. So we have the color return, look up color return in the colors table. And we want to find the corresponding RGB value and an exact match. If you've done any Excel formulas, then this will be vaguely familiar too with you, the concept of the VLOOKUP. If I finish that, that gives us my structure of my rule up here. Okay, so that's set for each one of those. So let's go and see how that's working now. If we close down the DriveWorks side of things, I'll just save what I've done over here. And I'll run our project at this point. So there's our form. So you can see that as I choose my colors, little color swatch updates. I can put in my values, so let's make it nice and tall, maximum height, closure width a bit wider than that, and maybe 200 deep. That blue will do, and I can do a preview up here. Remembering the preview allows me to see my model before I actually commit to it. I'll just preview that. We'll see how it looks. Okay, so we have a tall, skinny, cadet blue version of our electrical enclosure. Okay, so that works all right at this stage. We can go back now. We need to also give the option, do they want the door or not, perhaps? We can choose to omit the door if we don't want it. So if I simply go back, I'll just cancel what I'm doing there. Go back to my Project Designer. Oh, not yet. One thing I forgot to do. Need to go back into our capture models, open up our case body. Because if we don't have a door, we don't need the door sill return, and we don't need the top drip run. So we need to capture them so we can control them. We can suppress them if we don't need them. So if I double click on them, it loads the name over here in the same way we did it for the dimensions. I can add that as a captured feature, as well as the top drip run. So they're both captured. We don't need to capture anything on the door because the door will either just suppress or not use. So they're captured. Okay. Go back to our project designer now. And we need to put an option on our form. Do we want a door or not? So we have a thing called an option group, which I'll call enclosure type. And over here we have the items to put on there, what options we have in our little box there. So if I go to my rule builder again, the two options would be we want a door, or we don't want a door. So with a door or without a door. The green background is okay, so I'll put that in there. And there's our little enclosure type. Let's put a picture in there as well so we can see what we're getting. This is our door image. I can resize that over here. And we can go off and grab a picture of that. So you can see how often we go into the rules. As I said, this is the heart and soul of DriveWorks, all these rules. It's a file name rule. For example, this one here. So that forces the with door one, but we can just change that to look for the actual enclosure type we picked. So enclosure type over here in our form list. So whatever we picked in there. And we'll add that to the JPEG at the end. So if we choose with door or without door, it'll use that name to find the required image. Okay, doesn't look like much at the moment, but we have the ability to control the size of that image over here. So I can zoom that, and I can see the little picture. Just so it fits in nicely. Let's just test that to make sure it works okay. There's my preview. If I click on with door, the picture's okay. If I click on without door, the image updates to show an enclosure without the door. Okay, looks good. So we'll go back to our model rules. We need to include those new features we've just added. So we can just refresh the list. And under case body, you can see here's our top drip run and door seal return. So I create a rule for them. It's a simple if statement. So if the enclosure type we selected so we say if the enclosure type that we selected is with door, then we need to make sure the door is shown, so we will force and unsuppress. However, if it's without door, then we want to suppress those features. looks good. We also need to look at the actual door itself. So we go to the case door and look at the actual file name here. Build a rule for that. Similar to what we just did, we want an if statement so that if our enclosure type is with door, then we want to use the standard, in this case the standard file name rule. You can make up your own, but we're just using a standard one at this stage, called DW specification. And if we said without door, then we actually want to suppress the door. Okay, let's go and see how that works. Should all be okay. Save that model. If I run the project, here's my new form. Put some more values in here again. I'll do the first one with door to make sure it works okay with that size. I'll just preview that one. So there's our blue door with a certain size and the door. Or if I say without door and a different color and preview that, you can see we get a nice green enclosure without the door. On the left hand side in our feature tree, the case door has been suppressed. So they're the sort of things that you can do. You can control what's in your form. You can have images updating, you have drop-down lists, you have limits, you have controls. You can suppress things, unsuppress things, all based on what you enter into the form. So your sales guys, your other people can just drive the form and generate exactly what your company needs once it's all been set up, of course. I hope that all made sense. Feel free to ask questions in a few minutes. We'll just pop back to the slideshow and we'll just finish things off a little bit here. So I'll just pop into the DriveWorks Pro interface to show you some of the differences. This is DriveWorks Administrator here. So one of the first things you'll see is a whole list of things. As today, it's a similar format at this stage, but not much information. But what you have down here is what are called groups and projects. If I open up a group, the first thing you'll see is I actually have to log in. So there's immediate security issues. If people they don't have the right username and password, they can't log into a particular group. Log into that one. There's information over here. There's security settings you can set up with teams and users. And if I go back to my today and I open up my project, now the left-hand side should look a little bit more familiar to the DriveWorks solo we just saw. Form navigation, form design. You've got constants as well as variables and tables. The security I mentioned, document rules, model rules, etc. Things that you saw before in Solo. But then you also have documents here. I'll just show you. If I add a new document, you also have the ability, whereas in Solo we have to copy the Excel data in, I can live link in Pro. ODBC linking, SQL linking, etc. I have specification control. I can control whether I'm specifying a new project or if it's pending or saved or completed, etc. So there's a lot more power in Pro. And of course, there's the web edition or DriveWorks Live. So that's what you see in DriveWorks Administrator. In SolidWorks, and you have this interface just here, still embedded into the task pane. If I just log on to that group there, again I'm having to log into it. and I see some similar stuff over here that I have the captured models. I can do a model generation, etc., but I can't go into Designer. That's two separate parts in DriveWorks Pro. Okay, that's just a quick overview. So if you really want to get a feel for how DriveWorks Pro works, then I strongly recommend you go off here to the live.driveworks.co.uk website. You can actually click on those and a form will come up and you can fill in the form in the same way I just did in SolidWorks, but it's a web-based approach, and you can actually then generate documents and get them sent to you to see how the whole thing works. It's well worth doing it. Okay, to finish off, I'll quickly recap some of the main benefits to be gained from using design automation with DriveWorks. First off, you can set up your customizable forms. So you can see some examples there. You've seen them in my demonstration. You can make your own pictures, your own forms, your own input, your own controls. You can decide what can be put in, what can't be put in, at limits, etc. You can preview the results. You don't have to commit to them. You can see preview on the screen before you have to say, yes, that's what I want. There's no having to delete files or keep track of them. You can reuse data. In Solo, you can copy it in. In Pro, you can actually live link to your company-wide systems or through ODBC or SQL to Excel, etc. You're not having to re-enter the data. You can have templates to set up your external documents, such as sales quotes, covering letters, etc. You can define where the files are created, what their name is, so you have full control over model names, drawing names, extra documents, etc. It's secure and controllable. You have security. You have log-on abilities. You have teams and users. You have workflows. This is in the full Pro system, where you can define different levels of definition. So person A can't generate drawings until it's been approved by somebody else, etc. DriveWorks, there's a live version, as I said. Take it online. Your customers can come and visit with your sales guys. They can even just go to the website by themselves, fill in the details, and the data will be sent to you for further processing or approval. Now, you really will get huge benefits from using DriveWorks. That's the whole idea of automating your whole process. You can take what used to take potentially days or weeks down to minutes or hours even. So we do have a special on at the moment for DriveWorks Solo. If you buy two, you can get a third license for free, 33% saving. First year subscription is free for all 3 seats, and you can get free online training from the DriveWorks portal. Now that's available till the end of September. If you have any questions or would like to talk to anybody from Intercad about it, please contact us on those numbers there, or you can email to info@intercad.com.au. I'll just leave it up for a moment in case you need to write something down. So I can note the time's going a little bit longer than I thought, so I'll just, not too long. Okay, well that's complete the webinar. Apologies for going a little bit longer than I thought. I hope you found it interesting and useful though. Look, it's brilliant software, guys. I'm the DriveWorks product manager here at Intercad, so obviously I've got a vested interest in it. I love it. But hopefully you found it interesting and you think of ways to use it in your system. Are there any questions? Just pop them in the question box and we'll just spend a couple of minutes responding to that. Nothing's coming. Oh, yep. PDM Works. Yes, there's an add-in, Mahesh, for PDM Works to allow Solo and Pro to work with it. It's downloadable from the DriveWorks website. There's no extra cost for that. You can just, if you are working with PDM Works, you can download the plugin for it. and that gives you the ability to configure it so it works with your PDM system. Can DriveWorks access the variables inside the design table? In DriveWorks Pro, you'd have the ability to access the design table, but it would have to be saved externally, I think, Ben. I've not done that. The idea of DriveWorks is to take you away from design table, so that sort of automation within the design table would be handled by DriveWorks instead. So I've not done it that way. My gut feel is no, it can't, but I will double check that one, Ben, just to make sure. So Mahesh, your question about DriveWorks and PDM. I think you do, but to be honest, I don't have it set up here, Mahesh. So I'll have to just double check on that one for you to give you a bit of a workflow as to the ins and outs of how DriveWorks connects to work with PDM. So I'll get back to you on that one. That's a good question, Rodney. I've never heard of anybody driving a simulation study, so I don't know 100% sure. I've never heard it mentioned, so I suspect the answer is no. It's just creating the models themselves. But again, to be 100% certain, I'll double check with the guys, but I'm fairly sure the answer is no to that one. Okay, look, it's run a little bit later than I thought, so I might wrap it up there. If you do have any other questions, please fire them into us. You can send them to support@intercad.com.au. Put a subject, something like question from DriveWorks webinar. That'll get redirected to me, so I can answer it. Otherwise, again, I hope you enjoyed the information. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you proceed to use it. It will definitely improve the response time of your designs. You can improve the efficiency and also the accuracy of your design input data. Thanks very much. I hope to hear from you, and have a good day.